The Piano, released in 1993, is a shining example of the growing role that females have played in film in recent decades. Cinema has often been viewed as a largely patriarchal institution, though we may be shifting ever further away from that as time continues to pass. The Piano itself won 3 Academy Awards the year following its release for Best Actress Holly Hunter, Best Supporting Actress Anna Paquin, and Best Original Screenplay for Director Jane Campion, all receiving well-deserved praise for the phenomenal work they put into the film. These stars, especially Campion, winning their awards continued to emphasise the trend at the time that the role of females in the film industry was expanding, but this fight was also fought through the Piano as a film itself. We're introduced to our heroine Ada McGrath and her young daughter Flora in the mid-19th century as the film begins, through an internal monologue finding out that Ada has not spoken a word since her childhood. Despite this, she's able to communicate through sign language with Flora, and has her own song through her piano, the music she plays being directly from the soul of the character, giving her voice. We learn that Ada has been sold and shipped off to New Zealand through dialogue to enter an arranged marriage with frontiersman Alistair Stewart, played by Sam Neill. We immediately identify Ada and Flora as characters to get behind through their first impression, contrasting to the cinematic stereotyping of women from many prior decades, this being evident through their feisty attitude. In the new era of cinema, women can be presented as strange, loud, impolite, enigmatic, baroque, beautiful, ugly, vengeful, funny. This marking a departure from the idea that women are simply in films to be looked at by prominent male characters in the audience, linking back to Laura Mulvey's definition of the cinematic gaze in 1975 that defined women in films as erotic objects for characters and spectators. While Ada and Flora seemingly lack having any say or interest in the marriage, their spirits aren't broken and they continue to function as real characters opposed to just passive ones along for the ride. We're introduced properly to Alistair and his friend Baines, played by Harvey Keitel, as they approach the beach to collect Ada and Flora. Alistair is clearly apprehensive, nervous, and a bit unsure of his new wife, especially when he realises she's mute, immediately asking for approval and reassurance from Baines.
What do you think?
Alistair instructs his hired crew to leave the piano on the beach as it will be too heavy to carry to his estate in good time, to the dismay of Ada and Flora. Ultimately though, their appeals are unsuccessful and the piano is left on the beach, cutting Ada off from the source of her voice, and the effect of this is immediately seen as she becomes passive to almost everything happening around her, as well as the event meaning she has no desire to even attempt to connect with Alistair. Although virtually any Hollywood film can be used to demonstrate the relegation of women to silence, absence, or marginality through the controlling power of the male gaze, the piano is far more blatant with this portrayal, with protagonist Ada literally being mute, presenting an interesting and rarely explored dynamic on screen. At this point in the story, Ada is forced to bend to the patriarchal dominance asserted by the male characters in the film, unable to even speak against it, representing the role of women in much of cinematic history prior to this film's release, and only continues as the plot progresses. We see Alistair sell Ada's piano to Baines against her will in exchange for land, while still hoping she may become more
affectionate
as time passes, all while Baines offers Ada the most physically intrusive of deals for her to earn her piano back. As the two get more physical in exchange for the piano, Alistair is still unable to make progress with Ada, and is enraged as he watches on when he discovers Ada and Baines together, but stays silent. Ada and Baines grow a genuine bond in their time together, no matter the strangeness of the circumstances, and Alistair is filled with jealousy, anger, and envy. Perhaps the current state of the story supports Laura Mulvey's idea about a male-dominated industry on screen, with Ada even almost being forced upon by Alistair and then locked up like an animal to prevent her from seeing Baines, losing almost all sense of being a human being, let alone a strong female character. Yet despite this, she has her piano back and is able to communicate her sadness through it, bringing everyone around her to an abrupt silence. Ada attempts to mend her broken relationship with Alistair, but it proves to be a ploy so that he'll loosen his tyrannical grip on her so that he trusts her enough to leave her alone with the house no longer serving as a prison. Ada uses this opportunity to send a message to Baines through Flora, who she forces to deliver the message despite Flora not thinking it is what should be done. Flora and Ada's relationship has become increasingly distant throughout the film due to Ada's affection for Baines, and not realizing the consequences will be so severe, Flora delivers the message to Alistair, who instead charges back to Ada in a fit of rage. To punish her, he attempts to destroy the piano, which Ada defends with no care for herself, leading to her being dragged into the mud and rain where he takes her finger and takes away her ability to speak through the piano, leaving Ada with almost nothing. In the darkest of places. Ada is then held prisoner by Alistair, who changes his mind about forcing himself on her, allowing her to go free on the condition her and Baines leave so he never has to see them again. After everything Ada goes through, this finally allows her to become more than an erotic object Mulvey-suggested females on screen are. Despite everything that's happened, the grip of the patriarchy finally loosens on Ada and Flora as they leave New Zealand with Baines, able to forge their own future together. Ada allows her piano to sink to the bottom of the ocean, almost allowing it to take her with her, but she saves herself. She's not saved by a knight in shining armor, but her own desire to go on and live out her days with Baines, also going on to find the voice she lacks since childhood in an epilogue and getting the happy ending despite her hardships. This ending marks a rebirth for Ada, and for females in film as a whole. The success of Jane Campion's The Piano was undoubtedly a crucial step in the fight for females against the patriarchy of the male-dominated cinema.